I'm not going to go through it in detail. You'll be heartily relieved to know. But Mike invited me to come along today to just tell you a little bit about the plans for the PWI going forward, our strategy, and particularly about name change, and to answer any questions you may have on those points. I think probably the first thing to talk about is name change and the change in the PWI's image. As some of you will know, we have made big strides in recruiting people from all sorts of engineering disciplines in the PWI, and particularly from overhead line or the electrification, the world of electrification. And one of the comments that our recruiters in that area, who are all senior electrification engineers, but they go out into the world of electrification and they say, come and join the PWI. And the response they get sort of 5 times out of 10 is, why would I want to join an organisation which is devoted to railway track? And what the modern industry does not really understand is that when the PWI was formed in 1884, permanent way was effectively everything that didn't move. Our modern interpretation of permanent way, and it's crept up upon us a bit, is really that permanent way is about track. And that's a misconception of what the PWI is and does, and is and has always done. And we feel that to move the institution on, we need to correct that misconception. And there are 2 ways of doing that. One is to actually explain to everybody in the world what permanent way really is. And to be perfectly honest, we've spent 2.5 years trying that, and it doesn't really work. So our last president, before Stephen Bell picked it in, said, look, we need to have a serious discussion in connection with our 2024 to 2038 strategy about what we do with image and name. And the board had a long think and consulted all sorts of people and came to the conclusion that we needed to change the name. So we proposed originally to be the Institution for Railway Engineering in the round. We've had a little bit of a discussion with the IRSE about that, who are not totally happy with our chosen name because it is, as far as they perceive it, it is far too close to the Institution for Railway Signal Engineers. And our sort of chosen IRALE short form was too close to IRSE. So we've gone away and had a think, and we've gone back to the IRSE with a different proposal, which we believe is much less prone to confusion with either Institution for Railway Signal Engineers or IRSE. I'm still not sure they like it, because what it still does is encompass the big scope of railway engineering. And we've been explaining ourselves to the IRSE and to the IMechE, the railway division, where I have to say that the discussions are a little less strained, but still serious, and we need to reinforce our intention to collaborate and the evidence that we want to collaborate and are collaborating. Well, actually, we do collaborate with the IMechE quite a lot. We have collaborated occasionally with the IRSE, but we want to do more of that. But we do believe that the industry needs an umbrella, or an umbrella engineering institution, a bit like the Royal Society, it's the Royal Aeronautical Society, or indeed the Institute of Agricultural Engineers, or the Institute of Water Management, or there are Shedlow. There are 30, and for those of you who don't know, there are about 39 different professional engineering institutions in the UK. There are a number, like the Institute of Civil Engineers, Mechanicals, and Chemicals, who are sort of discipline focused, and there are others like the Royal Aeronautical Society, Agricultural Engineers, Chemical Engineers, etc., who aren't so much focused on discipline, but are focused on an industrial sector. And we, the board and the PWI, the board of the PWI, and which includes me, really want to try and turn the PWI into that institution for the rail industry. We don't want to take anything away from the IRSE. They are the experts in railway signalling, and they also know quite a lot about telecoms and data, and I don't want to take any of that away from them, nor indeed do I want to take the expertise in rolling stock away from the IMechE. But neither of those two bodies provides the sort of umbrella that we envisage. Why do we want to do this? Because there are huge numbers of people in the railway industry who either are in engineering or who interface with engineering, who have no clear home to go to when looking for, if you like, professional engineering guidance and development. And we want to provide that home. Our next president, all being well, will be a lady called Mona Sehota, who is heavily into earthworks and drainage, and particularly draining the whole area of drainage and off track, where she says basically, look, my people have no, they have no institutional home. People are not interested. Engineering institutions are not really interested in what they do. I mean, to some extent, we had a bit of that from the electrification engineers, who many years ago would probably have been part of the IMechE. But the IMechE has got a really good fixation on rolling stock, but they're not actually that bothered about knitting and steel masts, and that's all a bit sort of infrastructure-y. So that's what we're trying to do. We, as again, many of you hopefully will know, we run education programs, the breadth of which, I mean, it started off in track, but they are growing. We're now doing earthworks and drainage. Earthworks, drainage and off track, EDOT. We are doing an electrification diploma, which is going down an absolute storm in that community, and with other engineers who want to learn something about an interfacing discipline. And we see there's huge scope for doing more of that in different disciplines. There's also scope for doing railway engineering for project managers, railway engineering for logistics managers, railway engineering for maintenance managers who are not themselves engineers. I mean, I'm not sure whether TfL is in that position, but I know in Network Rail there are a significant number of maintenance managers who are not engineers. I mean, that's slightly worrying, but that's just me being old-fashioned. But these people, if you're managing engineering, it's a good idea. You've got somewhere to go to develop your CPD in engineering, and that's where the PWI wants to get to. So that's why we're doing what we're doing, and that's why we want to change our name. Anybody got any questions or comments? I'll take comments.
So what was the name that was agreed upon in the end?
Well, we haven't.
Oh, okay. So that's still
until we either agree or we disagree, then I'd rather not start. I mean, having set that ball going once and having had to live with consequences, I really don't want to do it again.
Sure.
But I mean, actually, my own view is we were right to talk to the membership first. There are others who said we should have spoken to other engineering institutions first, but personally, I think it's the members who make this institution, and it's the members I want to take with me, and the board wants to take with them. I deeply have great respect for other engineering institutions. I rub shoulders with their CEOs on a regular basis, and we are now firmly part of that club and are contributing. But we are here for our members, not for the IRSE or the Royal Academy of Engineering or Engineering Council. We're here for our members.
Why are they so frightened?
Sorry?
Why are they so frightened?
Well, we have asked them that, and we haven't really got it. I think what they're worried about is that we will mount some sort of competitive push into railway signal engineering. First, I can think of little I would rather less do, to be honest. Great deal of respect for signal engineers, but I do not want to be a signal engineer. And I know people who have spent their lifetimes getting their heads around the discipline, and I haven't got a lifetime left to spend doing it. So no, signal engineers are people we need. And I've worked with some great ones in my time, but we've just got to persuade the IRSE that we're not acting. We're not on a land grab for their members. Their members are their members because of what the IRSE offers, and we're not going to be offering that.
Two questions, one from me, one from Paul.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah.
Paul is asking, what do we call ourselves? And my question is there a timeline for when the name will be?
Well, we've had a meeting with the IRSE. I have to go back to them with a formal proposal, which they will then think about. After that, there may be a little bit of iteration, but sometime towards the end of the summer, I believe, we will either know whether we have an agreement to go forward harmoniously, or whether we will go forward with our proposal and they will formally object. It's basically a legal process. It's nothing to do with the Engineering Council. As far as the Engineering Council is concerned, we can call ourselves what we want. But this is to do with trademark and protection, that sort of thing. So I would hope that by the end of the summer, we'll know where we're going, and then we need to decide whether to put it, because the name it'll still be put to the membership. Everyone will have a say, or everyone will have a vote. And we'll put it to the membership either in the autumn or indeed at 2025's AGM, depending on how things go.
International note, Stephen, was there any objection?
We're saying we've had a level of disquiet from the IMECE, but not at the same level. The IRSE they're the people who have really taken exception. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And if you can't remember that diagram, please go and have a look at your January journal.
So now
Stop
please
sharing.
join me in welcoming Rakesh, Steve, and Gareth, who will be giving us an update on the Piccadilly Line upgrade.
Thank you. So hi, I'm Steve Ristow. There are a couple of faces in the room that I do know. Hopefully online you can see in here. I need to work out now how I take over the share. Be good. Okay, excellent. So hi, I'm Steve Ristow. Interestingly, my boss has promoted me in the presentation, and I'm deputy leader of the Piccadilly Line upgrade programme. I'll take that one back to the office when I go in tomorrow. Apologies first from Tim Morrison, who is the head of the upgrade programme. He unfortunately couldn't be here tonight and asked myself to pick it up. I've not come alone. As we know, railways are always a team event. And I have brought with me a couple of brains. So I've got Rakesh Gaur, who is our head of engineering, the Piccadilly Line upgrade programme, and Gareth Hood, who leads our integration team. My day job, apart from being deputy lead for the programme, is head of delivery for depots, stabling and train systems. So I've got everything rolling stock and looking after that rolling stock and interfacing projects there. So hopefully, here we go. Excellent. So I'm not going to go through the agenda line by line, but we're going to take you on a bit of a rapid run through, hopefully, the holistic upgrade programme. It's very easy on these kinds of programmes to become rolling stock heavy or to become track heavy. We want to take you on a journey around the whole of the Piccadilly Line upgrade programme. We will give you some really interesting technical aspects around the train. Rocky's going to pick that one up. But we want to talk to you mostly about the integration challenges we've had recently and how we bring together the whole of the Piccadilly Line upgrade programme and the benefits that it delivers. So headlines first off from a benefits perspective. The Piccadilly Line upgrade programme, many people will know, was born of the Deep Tube upgrade programme. which was a great aspiration from a TfL perspective or a London Underground perspective, even in those days, to deliver a major upgrade of all the deep tube lines and provide continuity and consistency across the board. Unfortunately, we have been subject to various different external influences that led us to move from a deep tube upgrade to the Piccadilly Line upgrade with new signalling and automatic train control and all kinds of additional benefits, to where we are today, which is stage 1 of the Piccadilly Line upgrade programme, which is new fleet of innovative trains, which we will talk about today, and the associated infrastructure works necessary to enable us to transition to operating that new fleet. We do still deliver significant capacity upgrades. We've got a base increase in capacity just on the fleet itself, by virtue of the way we've specified and designed the trains. And we then will also enable an uplift of the timetable to 27 trains per hour, which gives us the additional capacity benefits. What else comes with that? Significant UK-wide economic benefits. We've created a new train assembly plant in Yorkshire, in Gaul. Siemens have built that fresh, specifically on the back of the contract that we have with Siemens to deliver Piccadilly Line trains, and funding dependent options for Central Line trains, Bakerloo Line trains, and Waterloo and City Line trains. So again, still holding that consistency and that continuity in the rolling stock that we would deliver for deep tube going forward. Alongside that, obviously, the increase in capacity brings with it additional benefits that feed into things like the Mayor's strategy for growing housing in London, and there'll be housing developments and new residents and new jobs that also go alongside the Piccadilly Line upgrade. So a number of wider benefits. From a line perspective, it's 94 new trains, and these are really innovative deep tube trains. First walk-through trains on deep tube lines. So following in the footsteps of the subsurface trains and the walk-through cars that we've got on F-stop, we'll have walk-through carriages here. Improve the accessibility, and also driving down and delivering decarbonisation. Again, Rocky will pick up on some of those details around the train specification and how we're doing that. Bigger, longer trains, but we're looking to use less energy through the innovative design. Beyond that, I'm going to pass over to Gareth for the first section on what is systems integration and how we're applying that on the Piccadilly Line.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so in terms of system integration, it's probably not new to a number of people in this room, but it is worth just remembering in terms of what we're talking about here. So it's looking at integrating everything together. So it's that holistic view. So what we're trying to do is take a holistic view. And as Steve mentioned, we started off with 4 lines. We're now down to 1, but it's still really important that we look at that from a point of view of what we're trying to do. We're going from an existing operating mode railway to future operating mode. And it's all those steps in between. So it's really, really important that we look at that holistically, look at how the existing network is set up, how it runs, and how we transition to that, what we'll have in the future. So obviously, really important as well that we are able to look at what we deliver, and that we can actually deliver the benefits that we set out to in the first part. So that systems approach gives us the opportunity to do that. It's quite a long program. Why is it important in terms of PLU? It is highly complex. We have got to keep the Piccadilly Line running. So we're effectively coming in every night. Got quite a number of work streams or work sites happening at the minute. We've got to put that railway back so it runs the next morning. Obviously got closures as well, but it's really, really important that we can manage that configuration and put it back the next day. It's not just about the infrastructure. There's a lot of process. So old train, hammers and spanners, new train, laptop, plug it in. It's completely different. So the big changes for people. There's big changes in terms of the processes and how we do things, the technology associated with that as well. So completely different maintenance regime, and we'll pick that up a bit later. So yeah, we need to make sure that we take that whole system approach, and that we come to the end of it, we'll actually deliver benefits for customers. And a thing that's really, really key to us is learning the lessons. So particularly with things like Crossrail, really looking to make sure that we own the whole, we understand how all the little different pieces come together whether that's the projects or the bits of scope we're delivering, how they come together to give us the overall system, and working with the team to get that understanding that, you know, if we don't have, we might deliver 19 projects on time, on budget, but if we don't have that last one at the right place at the right time, then it doesn't matter. So it's really trying to make sure everybody understands how that fits together. And obviously as a way of coordinating that complexity. So really, really important on this kind of thing that the client steps up and really helps to pull that together. So in terms of specific benefits, touched on some of it, but certainty of outcome in a structured way, working through it in a structured way. But also it gives us that holistic view of all the program interfaces. So a lot of the time, some of this comes out late or it's not identified, as this gives the opportunity to make sure from day one that we've, as far as possible, mapped out everything that we think is going to involve some sort of change across the lifestyle. I've said here critical to effective management of risk. Again, we've had challenges as a lot of programs have, but part of that is, and I suppose looking at some of the lessons out and stuff, it's really looking using the systems and the integrated approach to manage that configuration. So really being able to say, understand the journey from A to B. These are the key steps. Does everybody understand that from an ops and maintenance point of view, from a construction point of view, what we'll have at that point in time? So really using that, using the requirements. So again, being able to use that system approach to define the overall set of requirements, what we need to get, and then being able to allocate that to different projects, and validate, verify and validate that throughout the process. And management change, obviously huge amount of stuff happening, lots of business drivers, things changing. It's a long duration, so really, really critical that we use it as a tool to manage that change over time. Again, it's complementary to good project management, and really taking this approach means that we can make sure we've got all the stakeholders identified from day dot. We know when we need to engage them based on geographically where we're going to be doing work at what point in time. So it really helps. Other things in terms of that integrated approach. So from a sort of integration team, we take a holistic view across assurance. So that means mapping out the overall assurance journey that we've got, the key stakeholders involved who need to sign what off at what stage. So really, really critical, getting everybody on the same page so they understand this is coming at what point in time. Testing and commissioning, again, looking at that holistically, what needs to be in place for success. And a really key thing for us is access and closure. So we've, like a lot of stuff after the pandemic, there was delays in terms of contracts and stuff. So we find ourselves in a place where we're really, really constrained in terms of what we need to get done in the time available. Obviously, you've only got so much time in engineering hours or cancelled engineering hours. So we've had to obviously rely on closures as well to do some of the work. So really, really important that we look at that holistically, make sure we're maximising every single opportunity we've got to get on the railway and do some work. And then obviously coordinate things like AMC, human factors, RAM, cyber and performance, so taking that holistic view linked into the requirements. In terms of some of the key components to support that integrated approach, so something that we've really put a lot of emphasis on is having a clear vision, and really being clear on what the priorities are, but using a lot of visuals. So making sure everybody understands what the journey is we're on, what's the goal, mission, and really just, we've refreshed this recently, but again, on such a big program, the team changes quite, you get a lot of, new members of the team come in, etc. People move on. So it's really, really important that people understand we're in this together, back to that piece about owning the whole. But also using visualizations. The picture does paint 1,000 words, and it's really making sure that we can use clear visuals so people understand where we are in progress. The other thing in terms of touched on requirements, but we have mapped out requirements right from the top level, which is effectively the sponsor level, business level, if you like. So that has taken the requirements from an end user point of view, so both from customer point of view, but our operators and maintainers who are going to hand the assets over to the operator and maintain it. So really articulating those requirements, and then down to the second level, level 2, if you like, which is effectively at the overall system level. So mapping those requirements out, linking them into interfaces, risks, hazards, etc. And then at the bottom level, allocating those down to the actual projects, sub-programs, if you like, that are going to deliver that. So we're able to trace those requirements right through, which is really, it's critical on a long duration, but it also means that we can then validate that we've actually achieved that. And if something new piece of scope comes along or something, we can look at that really quickly and see where that impacts. So yeah, really important. So we use obviously requirements management tool DOORS to support us with that. Don't get too upset, or you need to leave, but take a breather. But this is our physical architecture. So effectively, we've mapped out every single interface on the railway, the Piccadilly Line. So both with the new train and the old train, there's a lot of stuff there. Yeah. Now I'm not expecting you to read that, but when you blow that up and zoom in, you can get specifics in a certain area. So you can see all the interfaces that the train's got with the infrastructure, with the control center, etc., etc. And what that does, it allows us to do a number of things, but we can code this up and effectively allocate it to the different subprograms. So we can get a subprogram view or an operator view, if you like, or a wider TFL. So we can see where all those interfaces are and who's looking after them, who's managing them in the program. But we can also do a view in terms of what are the interfaces, what are we modifying, what are we retaining, what's new, what we're making redundant. So it gives us a really amazing tool to make sure that we've captured everything as far as possible, and then allows us, those interfaces are all identified and recorded in an interface register, which we can then, depending on what the interface is, it may or may not have an interface control document. We'll use that to coordinate the interface, and then we can allocate it to whoever's best place to manage that interface, and then that drives stakeholder engagement and things as well. So really powerful piece of work that's and it shows that complexity as well, and the need for that sort of systems approach in terms of what we're dealing with. I'm not going to spend too long on these slides, but again, this is just to give you an understanding of some of the visuals thing we've used. This one was around the configuration states. So effectively, like I said earlier, we're on a journey here from current railway operation to end state operation. We need to go through various different stages on the way, configurations, if you like. And at those configurations, we need certain things in place. So you can see the little diamonds or triangles. And then you've got where we need project input, we need something from ops and maintenance, for example. What are all the things we need in place for that configuration? So this is really, again, about holding the whole, making sure everybody understands that journey we're on and what we need to do to work through. And a lot of this is a graphical representation, but it's worth pointing out that it's linked into the data we've got in Primavera. So we've done a lot of work in terms of making sure that Primavera, in terms of our schedule, is up to date and supports us in terms of that single source of truth for program data. And then this is a visual representation of that. Nobody wants to look at 300 pages of Primavera, but this is a lot easier to understand those linkages. Again, similar part 2. And from a T&C point of view, again, what we did is looked at things holistically and said, what are all the testing, commissioning activities that we need to undertake on this railway to bring it into use? So again, you've got things that we need to do with the train on the test track of the network, and we've got things that we need to do when we bring the train here to test all the new assets on the platform, for example. There's line-wide running that we need to do, testing a lot of comm systems, things like that. Testing the depots where we're going to be doing the future maintenance and stabling, and then various tests on the control system. So again, just maps it all out, make sure, engage with all the stakeholders, and have we captured everything? And I think
Back to me.
Steve now.
Back to me.
Yeah.
So I get to do the simple bit about delivery summary. So of course, on the back of all of that, we then go back into invariably what you'll see as a traditional delivery approach in a railway project environment, which generally is asset based. So one of the biggest challenges we have is We then drive project teams to deliver their own individual scope on time and to budget, and we need to get them to buy in, read, and get involved in all of the integration stuff Gareth's just spoken about, so that we get the whole project over the line together. But from a delivery summary perspective, we just got a really simple breakdown of the railway in migration areas and a staged strategy against which we deliver the infrastructure enabling to support the rollout of that fleet of trains in each of those areas. And you can see from the top headline summary that our current plan is we will enable, test, commission and enter into early service in MA2B and MA4A. What happened to MA1, everybody asks? Well, MA1 was meant to be the first area. It was going to happen at the front end, and that was the strategy that was set 10 plus years ago. Tom's in the room, and I might say that 4LM happened to MA1 because we have a massive signalling interface in MA1 with the subsurface railway and the signalling upgrade over there. But more sensibly, actually, we matured in our understanding of how we needed to deliver this railway. We matured in our understanding of where we're going to be putting these early trains and where we're going to be able to launch testing and commissioning from. And we moved to a strategy that runs testing and commissioning in the first areas around that home depot because it's sensible. We can get the trains in and out. So this is now our current strategy, and we've just shifted our delivery model to align with this. We've made some changes around how we batch the projects and how we group those in delivery teams to drive the enabling works in each of these areas in terms of readiness for testing. And the delivery sequence on the left-hand side in the middle there shows where those priorities are. So now we can get the focus from the asset-based projects to deliver readiness for testing in the areas we need in line with how we're planning to test the railway. Moving on from that, we'll start to talk about the big ticket, which is the background to all of this, and that's the new trains. So Rocky's going to take over and he'll talk to you about the architecture of the new trains and the 24 tube stuff.
Thanks, Steve. So hi, I'm Rakesh Gordon, Programme Engineering Manager for PLU. We will, the reason that Gareth displayed many interfaces and many boxes is because introducing the new train requires a heck of a lot of other enabling works associated with it. So we're going to cover that in a second. Just going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the train architecture, and colleagues who I was talking to just prior to this just reminded me that, you know, from the inception of the project, as Steve said, over a decade ago, there are probably people in this room or online who may have touched upon the Piccadilly Line upgrade at some point. Quick show of hands, physically and virtually. There's quite a few. Okay, so I'm going to step a little bit back in time to start this this section, and really around where the train specification came from. So it was one of the first trains that we had a purely output specification for. So we allowed the bidders to do the work on looking at how to look at the tender models and come up with a design that would benefit the greatest. So a couple of parameters that we had as part of that evaluation model was around valuing passenger throughput ultimately, you know, which led to as big as possible, best run times possible, passenger comfort, so seats versus standing space, ensuring that we had for a deep tube train as much head height as we could within the vestibule areas, power consumption, so more energy efficient, which led to reduced mass wherever we could, and whole life cost. And that's whole life cost not only of the rolling stock itself, but whole life cost of the track assets and all the infrastructure in and around the train, including energy costs. So just a high level overview just to compare where we've ended up in terms of the two tube stocks. So slightly longer train, 24 tube stock is about 113 meters, just over that from body end to body end. We have more regularly spaced and all double doors. So that's the configuration that reduces dwell time to improve. It's the optimal boarding and alighting type space on the context of our railway. And we've increased the number of our access points and locations within the train itself. We've also got a change in terms of bogey centres, and we'll just easier to see on this diagram. So this is the new train configuration. So you can see how the incentivization has created the internal seating plans, as wide vestibule area as possible, walk-through carriages, as Steve mentioned, which increases both security feeling for the passengers and capacity. But for the eagle-eyed amongst you, one of the novel things that transpired through the design that we centered on was these suspended carriages. So they're 9-car trains, and every other carriage is suspended. So that means that it's not shared bogies; they are completely bogie independent. So I think this is the first train that I've ever worked on where the trailer car carriages are actually the first 2 bogie sets, with all the intermediate ones being motored. So from a bogie configuration, it's a little bit different there. Yeah, so this is the current design, and I could have picked any of the subsystems that I probably would have been better versed on personally, but I thought as it's the PWI Institute, I would just pick out some of the features that have that sort of transpired through our bogies and suspension design. So we've got subtle differences between within our motor and trailer variants. Like I say, the trailers are just the outer bogies, all the rest are motored. Real tangible differences that without all the traction gear, we've tried to reduce the weight on the trailer bogies as much as possible, so remove all the back bracketry, etc., associated with it. Light as possible for energy consumption, so welded steel plate and hollow axles to try and reduce that as much as possible. Reduce the wheelbase as far as possible, and hydro bushes to try and reduce track weight. Unlike sort of most of the recent rolling stock that we've introduced on our network, we've actually gone for a H-frame construction, so there's no, it's not a split frame bogie. Our assessments were looking at the track twist associated and how the bogies would ride that, and we've gone for solid H-frame construction. It's a real trade-off there, right, between the dynamics that you're sending through to, especially to the axle boxes and so on and so forth. So, a bit of optimization around that. And permanent magnet motors, which is a first for us. So, that in combination with low loss conductor rail, and in some instances extra low loss conductor rail that we're having to fit in, means that we're looking at a energy saving of around 25% of our current traction energy. So significant from a cost perspective, and notwithstanding the grid decarbonisation, that still gives us a real forward-looking curve on our decarbonisation from our tier 1 carbon footprint perspective. So these are some of the early fabrications of the bogie. So obviously that's the design drawings and some of the early fabrications. And just honing in, I thought these were some of the interesting features. So the red on the top diagram looks at the primary suspension. So that's steel coils with rubber springs in there. On our secondary suspension, we've got metal elastics, and that's on the bottom right. So we've moved away from airbag suspension, based on the cost benefit of whole life OPEX, and the benefits in terms of ride comfort that we thought we would be able to manage. We have a function called rough ride detection. That's basically accelerometer based. And what we're really hoping is that rather than needing to run our track recording vehicle or automatic track monitoring system, we can harvest data from every single passenger train to try and build a picture of track conditions using, first and foremost, that accelerometer data, because the accuracy and potential of that, as well as the volume of data, gives us a real capability to be able to do that. A lot of consideration of friction modifiers. So we've got solid friction modifying sticks on both on the flange and wheel backs. That, as well as adhesion modifiers, which will be lubricant spray based. I couldn't tell you exactly what lubricant types, but I have to consult my vehicles engineers for exactly what we're going to go for. That's going to be a migration optimization in itself. We currently use trackside lubrication for most of this, so we'll have to find the sweet spots, and there'll be a lot of modeled data going forwards on this, but some of it will have to be let's migrate and see what the track wear looks like. We can try and predict it as much as possible, but until the train comes and starts doing some kilometers in anger, it's quite difficult to fully optimize that. But I think we've got every tool at our disposal and definitely worth throwing every tool at it from a whole life OPEX reduction perspective. Sanders on a number of our vehicles. So where we don't have adhesion modifiers, we have de-icing and sanders. So we're trying to utilise that space as best possible across all of the trains. And lifeguards in terms of protection for any debris flicking up and protecting the rest of the bogie system. So at this moment, we'll go into some of the other sort of non-train features across the upgrade. I think that's going over to Steve. Benefits.
So obviously, with the new trains, there's a wider infrastructure piece, and we'll cover now a few of the bits and pieces around scope we're delivering there. It's a really energetic presentation. It likes to
try to keep you to time.
It likes to go ahead by itself. I think it's on it. So hopefully that's going to go back. Are we ready? Interesting. We've lost the presentation.
Come on, I think we can still see it. Press escape. Let's click on the slide.
It's changed on the screen, has it? But not on.
Changed on the screen, but it's not changed on the presentation. There's a lag somewhere. That's fine. I'll skip. I'll quickly talk to the previous one. It's just a really pretty picture of the 24 tube stock. We touched on 94 trains, 9 cars that we've talked about already, with intermediate suspended cars, no bogies, reducing the weight. It's still deciding to go by itself. Air conditioning always draws the question, so I'm expecting that we'll see some questions on that towards the end around the air conditioning aspect and how we're still driving down the energy. Here we go. That capacity target of 880 passengers per train. That technology is really testing. It's going to drop back, and it's just going forward like so. There you go. So we've got 4 wheelchair spaces per train. Overall, a 10% increase in passenger capacity and a target of 20% less energy consumption. All in all, with our timetable uplift under stage 1, that will give us a 23% capacity increase across the Piccadilly Line. Now it's moved on, and I want it to move on, and it's not moved on up yet. So. Alongside the trains, obviously, we've got train driving simulators that are being built and are coming to enable us to develop and train our train operators. We've got off-train communication systems. These trains will wirelessly transmit data to our data warehouse, and at the moment we're working on the digital interface for that and our Maximo systems to enable us to actively predict our maintenance cycles in the future. Beyond that, also in my sphere of influence is the additional systems like one-person operations systems, closed circuit television. So for the Piccadilly Line, this is new. Currently, we are all platform-based one-person operation systems. We're putting in a track-to-train system that provides in-cab OPO imaging for safe dispatch. We're also tying that back in to the command and control centre to enable assisted dispatch should we need it. Quick pictures. There are some really exciting things that have gone on. So this was a 3-car unit in the early days of testing, being transported through Austria to the climate chamber. It warmed my heart to hear some of the challenges that Siemens were facing. They have exactly the same issues with getting permissions to transport these unusual vehicles across their roads as we do in the UK. Past that, it's going to go. Desperately trying to keep moving forward because of the time constraints. Come on. It's not having it at all.
If you bring it out of share and back into share, it'll just refresh it.
So, stop share. Right. Definitely have a Wi-Fi lag.
You talk about it.
Hang on. Here we go. We're back up. Right. So, quick welding pictures. Here are some real cars from the first 24 tube stock. Top left is inside the sensor arrangements for the climate testing for the 3-car unit that was in the climate chamber. Top middle is a picture of that train. The remainder of those pictures are cards in the build process within the Siemens facility in Vienna. We've just begun to transition the first of the cars to the new facility in Gaul. So there are now built cars in Gaul that are going through final assembly, and the first train that's being actually assembled in the UK is underway. Hopefully, I'm going to prove to you that the trains do exist and that suspended cars will run by trying to play a video, but I think I'm probably pushing my luck. It should be coming. Wow, and I thought Endeavour Square Wi-Fi was bad.
Like,
We're going to struggle. I think I may just need to move on. So we want to quickly talk about the other infrastructure that we're delivering to support. So I think
We'll try and run the video during the Q&A.
we'll come back to the video at the end if we can. So moving on, am I carrying this one as well, or am I handing back? I can't remember. Let's just go. I'll continue. This is definitely sent to test me. I've come out of slideshow. We'll see if we can move forward on a side-by-side basis. So obviously we've got wider infrastructure enabling that we need to deliver to facilitate the new trains. Power is a big part of that. We've got a number of HV network upgrades, not specifically to facilitate new Piccadilly Line trains, but because the Piccadilly Line shares an awful lot of the power infrastructure on London Underground, and we're just basically pushing with the timetable uplift. Even though we've got reduced overall demand, our peak demands mean that we need to increase the power supply in various places. We are putting in low loss conductor rail. That's progressing at a fair pace across the Piccadilly Line. It's one of the early projects that is in flight. Number of transformer rooms to support these power upgrades, and then a base 600 volt immunisation project to immunise the legacy signalling system to facilitate the migration to these new digital trains. Power in pictures, hopefully you'll see shortly. I will carry on in the absence. Just some pictures of the work that is in flight already across the network. Around substation upgrades and DC switchboard upgrades that we're delivering to support the end state traction piece. So again, the traction contracts are up and running, works are underway already in those arenas, and 600 volt immunisation is progressing at pace as well. On to infrastructure. Do you want to pick up?
yeah, sure. I'm not going to touch the PowerPoint. So yeah, infrastructure. Again, lots of stuff in that space. Track. So we've got, it says track here, but Steve's talked about conductor rail. There are track modifications required as well. So we do have a lot of bullhead rail. So there's conversions there. Part of that's getting delivered as part of sort of business upgrades as well. So we need to work closely in terms of where and when for where that needs done, where the worst case areas are. Train arresters, and probably two of the most significant things are sort of PTI and infringements. So obviously new rolling stock, new kinematic envelope has a different impact or infringement on the platform. So we need to look at that. We've also got a challenge from a PTI point of view. We've got an existing, if you like, safety risk in terms of the existing profile with the current train 73 TS. In end state with 24, we'll have a slightly different risk profile with stepping gaps, etc. And then in the transition from those two, we'll have a situation where we've got both fleets running around. So it's quite a complex challenge, and where we're going from currently to where we end up in the interim. So that triggers a lot of understanding and potential mitigations during that mixed fleet period. Steve touched, Rocky's touched on the OVR in terms of the platform humps and ramps. We've got upgrades to the LB main. Again, as you can imagine, 156-year-old railway. lots of these assets haven't been touched for ages. So we do need power, particularly for the one person operation CCTV. So that's station main supports that. And then other DC power upgrades. And also I think it's worth just pointing out from obviously looking at it holistically, we need to look at the different CRMS that's out there, have a consideration of what cables we're putting in there, so that when we're doing works and surveys, we're having to think about the overall piece in terms of what else needs to go in. A few pictures just in terms of conductor rail, so quite well ahead with the conductor rail, train arresters, and sort of just a picture of the innovative home. So again, driving some innovation in terms of what we're looking at, and particularly because we've got the future line potentially as well. So I think Rocky would say that you pick up RCS.
I'll fly it by. Look,
Yeah.
we're having to do, Stephen didn't manage to close the door quickly enough. I noticed there's a few IRC members within the room here infiltrating our masses, but we are doing works on the railway control system as well. Primarily the top two, so we're having to immunise sections of the railway that are using certain frequency legacy track circuits. We're also having to, because of the new sighting cone of the train versus the old one, we're installing coacting signals to make sure that we've got very good, thorough signal sighting. Part of the railway control system, so hopefully a backbone as well for stage 2, which is currently unfunded. Now, I'm not bitter, but anyway, we're still doing some works which will enable future comms in that space, and those will have benefit for within stage 1 as well. So we are looking at features such as remote dispatch. So we'll have OPPO CCTV remotely within control rooms. We have off-train communications. So this is pulling all the asset data from the train to be diagnosed, both warehouse diagnosed, long form and real time with our train technicians. And we have other functions such as real-time disruption messaging. So really reducing the data flow periods between the control room and the train, so we'll be able to fire out real-time audio as well as digital messaging to make sure that our customers are as informed as possible around not only Piccadilly Line but all the wider aspects of the network. I flicked it forward. Sorry, I've got one more. Should have gone a bit earlier, just to give a view of the works and equipment. I've gone straight forward to depots and stabling. So Steve, you can pick this up. Hopefully it'll refresh.
We're missing all of the intermediate pictures, unfortunately. We'll try and get back to those at the end. So obviously the last piece of the puzzle is where we store these trains, where we stable these trains, and where we maintain these trains. So we're looking at a wholesale piece of new maintenance facilities across Piccadilly Line. And currently Piccadilly Line has a number of mainline sidings that we use for stabling, and 2 main maintenance depots at Cockfosters and Northfields. We have a phased approach to completely rebuilding those depots and provide brand new maintenance facilities for the new digital trains. So there are included in that 12 new sidings at South Harrow that we've already brought into use. Tom's well versed in those. They kept him awake at a point in time, as they did me. So we've got the new sidings at South Harrow that are already enabled for 24 tube stock and 73 tube stock today. We are providing upfront critical delivery works at Cockfosters and Northfields. So this is to facilitate early ability to maintain the test train fleet and the early trains as they're delivered as part of the migration, while we slowly but surely go round in a staged approach to taking out of use existing maintenance facilities at those 2 locations and build the new maintenance facilities. So at the moment we are engaged in something quite novel for us in the TfL space by way of an early contractor involvement piece with 2 big tier 1 contractors who deliver depots and stabling facilities for other members of the industry. And we're looking to try and collaboratively use their knowledge, skills and experience alongside our own needs as an operator to optimize those end state facilities and drive best value in terms of those final maintenance facility buildings that we deliver. Obviously, all of which in the backdrop of keeping the Piccadilly line up and running, keeping 73 tube stock operating as reliably as we possibly can, keeping them alive. They're older than me, and obviously they're showing their age. So we need to transition in a timely fashion. Hopefully, we'll get some pictures. Yeah, we've definitely got some lag. I'm going to leave it on the picture slide for a little while because there is a quite nice picture in the right. Here we go. So the central picture is the new signings at South Harrow. There are 12 roads there now, and previously there were 4. It's quite six. Thank you, Tom. That was quite a heavy piece of work for us in terms of taking that out of operation and completely remodeling it, bringing it back in. We're introducing a mobile lifting jack system in the first instance to give us a temporary lift capability for the test train fleet and the early life while we build the new end state facilities. Ops and maintenance is where we are going next. Operations and maintenance readiness obviously is fundamental to any major program and any upgrade. We've got strong high-level ops and maintenance concepts in place for the Piccadilly line for the end state. We've got dedicated ops and maintenance readiness teams embedded within the program who work alongside the project teams on a day-to-day basis and give us that ability to identify areas for early engagement, to bring with us the end users and the customers in terms of what we're delivering by way of an overall railway upgrade. They provide support, they provide the customer facing input to the derived requirements for the various aspects of the infrastructure that we're delivering. They tell us when we don't get it quite right. South Harrow sidings is a good example, and the programme have actually been through a fairly heavy lessons learned piece there, and a bigger ticket investigation into some of the issues around the handover and bringing into use of those facilities. We had a number of problems around transition back into maintenance and ownership of the track maintenance in the area. The team have done a really, really good piece of work on learning from that and introduced a number of changes to how we're delivering the customer or the user facing infrastructure going forwards. They're obviously fundamental to development of training material, not only from the maintenance perspective, but also from the train operator perspective. Piccadilly Line has pushed hard to learn from the line upgrades of the past and create development of training materials and training approaches that are TfL and London Underground focused from the off. In the past, often we've had training materials and training plans come from suppliers, and then we've had to completely rework those internally to get them into a state that are usable. The work we've done with the ops and maintenance readiness teams have taken us to a much better position in terms of readiness for training our people. They obviously are fundamental to the trade union consultation, which is a huge part of any readiness in terms of a railway upgrade or a railway project. And they provide the input into our testing and trial operations plans to make sure we're proposing to do the right things in terms of that readiness piece. There are some pictures now on my screen, and hopefully they'll pop up on yours shortly. But we've done things like we've had an early life mock-up of both a cab and a saloon car for the 24 tube stock that's allowed us to do early engagement with frontline users and end users. We had a mock-up of the underframe, which allowed us to do some day in the life type activity around how it will be and what it will be like to maintain the assets that are underneath the train. The majority of well, in fact, everything is now underneath the train on the 24 tube stock. So the whole maintenance strategy is predicated on access below the train to deal with what we need to deal with. We've literally just commissioned the first train driving simulator, so that's up and running. It's commissioned, it's tested, and we are now doing some early user interfacing with some of our Vanguard and our test train operators and instructor operators. Last before any questions, which is a boon for me because it means I'm no longer at the behest of this technology, is just headlines in terms of timeframes. So, and I will quickly whiz back after this if I can and try and show you a video. So currently we have 2 test trains on the test track in Germany at the Siemens facility. They are undergoing type testing as we speak, and our engineers are frequently back and forth to Willenrah for witness testing. Headlines: first 24 tube stock comes to London this year. Late 2024 is on the slide. At the moment, we are forecasting summer, end of summer 2024 for that first train coming to London. First training passenger service is early 2026. So between late summer this year and 2026, we will be integration testing the railway, and we will be slowly but surely delivering trains to London to build the fleet and transition away from silver ships. Completion of the fleet replacement is due in 2027. So that is the point at which we will have readiness for the timetable uplift, and the timetable uplift quickly follows. We are in a position where we need all 94 of the new trains to be in London, commissioned and operational for us to make that timetable up. The programme then does run on beyond 2027. The depots and maintenance facilities won't complete when we finish the rest of the migration of the line. We will continue to run phased upgrades to our maintenance facilities to provide things like the heavy overhaul facilities. Obviously, our strategy for the Piccadilly line, as per other lines, is that we will retain the maintenance obligation and ownership of maintenance of this fleet. So Siemens will hand the fleet over, Siemens will train our people, and then we will take the whole life maintenance. I am going to quickly flick back through the slide deck and see if I can get the video to run. It is a video of the first test train in Germany.
Take questions whilst that.
Yeah, we can kick off the questions.
That's good. Thank you.
So, any questions?
So I noticed on one of the slides talking about the platform training space in Armagh, there was reference to mobile ramps. Do you know which stations they will be deployed at?
I don't know every platform that they will be deployed at. I do know that there are a number of platforms where the end state solution is mobile boarding ramps. It's not the majority of platforms. I think out of all of the platforms, I can't even remember the total number. Do you know the total number?
Where NBR for manual.
Yeah, manual boarding ramps. End state solution, not transition.
I can't remember the total solution. So there'll be so all the stations that are RVR compliant today will be RVR compliant with humps. That's our solution to maintain those. Obviously, the doorway locations mean there's going to be a transition between the hump locations. But I can't get back to you or post in the message in the chat to look at the numbers that will be using manual boarding ramps.
So the answer is no in terms of every station that will have them. No, I don't know the answer.
So do you know if it's single figure stations or double digit number of
I
stations?
think it's double digit platforms as opposed to stations.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see him working at Leicester Square on a Friday afternoon, for example.
Yeah.
I'm sure in that end.
So I think the limitation is around the physical capacity to deliver infrastructure mods that will allow us to have level access. The stations, we are limiting manual boarding ramps to those stations where it is just not feasible. Not feasible to modify the platform infrastructure or the track infrastructure and maintain the clearance and gauge. So Rocky touched on it. We've maximised the envelope of the train. Part of the specification that went to market was to push the boundaries and really maximise the capacity of the train. So the suppliers had pushed the limits of the kinematic envelope. We're now reaping the benefits of that for our sins in terms of the challenges around how we deal with the infrastructure piece and how we ensure that we have what we need in terms of clearance and gauge. And of course, the PTI interface that goes with it and rail vehicle accessibility. next.
Some questions online as well, so.
So should we go one online?
Yeah, I'll do one online and then we'll come back to the room. So, is there capability with the train for full ATO?
So yes is the answer. The train is designed and future-proof, and we have secured the space on board the train for onboard automatic train control systems, and there is capacity within things like the wiring looms, for example. We've also fairly recently agreed a change with Siemens to create an artificial interface that allows us to test the Siemens interface now against a dummy signalling system, because obviously in the absence of a signalling upgrade, we didn't have that interface to manage that test. So yes, will it be perfect? Probably not, but we're doing everything in our power to future-proof the trains and provide a tested interface that we can then lock into the specification for the stage 2 works in terms of signalling upgrade. Hope that answers that question. Next one in the room. Should we go left side and then we'll go back to the right hand side?
So I have another question for the PTI. So as I can see from the PowerPoint, there are 2 types of platform humps for 73 and 24 stock trains. So can I know if both types of humps coexist on station platforms during the rolling stock transition period?
You can tell that one, Rocket.
Yeah, look, the migration is going to be the most challenging part. So at some locations, we will try and cover through a mono hump, and at some they'll have to be separated. So sifting through all the geometries and the workflows for all of them is a bit complex. So we're going to have to manage our customer strategy on those. Where we don't have a hump, but we have 24 tube stock running, we'll try and put some manual ramps in that interface time. But there will be a period of time where we need to make sure that our customers are well informed in advance around what capability exists to that particular point in time. Obviously, that will during the fleet migration, which is a 2-year a 2-year span, that itself will vary as we go. So part of that forward-looking comms piece is making sure that our customers feel well informed and still able to travel and make the journeys that they need. It's not a simple piece, part of the jigsaws.
So during that period, is the structural gauge still maintained for both types of stock?
Yes.
For both humps?
Yeah, correct. So some of the challenges we've got are doing works where we currently have humps, where we do need to remove some infringements, but maintain the integrity of the humps that stay there today. For example, Earls Court westbound, for those of you who know, there's a hump on that platform at Earls Court. We will need to do some gauge works on it, but that hump will still be available for use with the 73 tube stock.
Thank you. Online?
One online, yeah. So question around the length. Since the new train is a bit longer than the 73 stock, will be some stations where the doors won't open, specifically the ones in the tunnel section.
So do you want to take it? Shall I kick off and you
Yeah.
can help me out if I go astray?
Go.
So we do seem to have a fixation on London Underground with buying trains that are too big for our infrastructure. We don't seem to like to buy trains that fit in our platforms. We must, even if it's only a few meters, always buy a longer train. There's the problem with listening to, I guess. And taller and wider. It is taller and wider. But having been on it, I can say from a customer experience perspective, it is amazing for a big tube. Now, I'm not a giant of a man, but normally on a tube train, even I'm struggling with the overhead height. And I know in the early days, I had Mike Smith, who was the head of the Piccadilly Line at the time, who is a giant of a man, standing upright in the middle of these cars. The customer experience is really, really positive in that respect. But I got distracted from the question, which was around the length. So we have got the capacity in the train systems for end door cutout. We are making arrangements in the early stages of the migration to have end door cutout at a number of locations because of things like the interfacing assets and the existing platform-based one-person operation systems. We are looking at stopping positions that allow us, in the majority of cases, if not all cases, to migrate to an end state position where these trains do stop with all passenger doors in usable platform areas. So we do have some scope in various areas where we are moving platform and barriers, bringing back into use non-public areas of platforms to facilitate the full boarding and alighting experience for 24 tube stop. So the plan is to migrate to, and as I say, the plan is to migrate to being able to use capacity.
Just a couple of kind of points on that. So current, yeah, in the future, because of the longer train, this is an online question, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm not talking to anyone in the room. Yeah.
No.
In some locations where we do have shorter platforms, the cab will be embedded into the tunnel at its normal stopping position, which is different to today. But because we have in-cab OPPO CCTV, the train operator will be able to monitor the PTI. And the advantage is that they'll be able to monitor that until the back end of the train is clear of the platform. So that's a big benefit over today, because today we've got trackside mounted OPPO at some locations, but mirrors in other locations. So that is a significant advantage. The other thing is with the technology of the train, because each set of doors has its own electronic door control unit. So they're fully electric doors. There's no pneumatics in them, but the door controls can be individually tuned so that at any location you could theoretically cut out any set of doors if you wanted to. But yeah, during migration, where we still got platform end barriers which suit 73 stop, we may have to cut out the first or even second set of doors. In the future, we are looking to move those platform end barriers as far as we can. So that might mean that at some locations, we're only then cutting one set of doors out, but the majority of platforms, we're not having to cut any out. So again, bringing the assets in the end state is all simple. It's the migration, which is the real, the stuff that keeps Gareth awake at night.
We've picked up a secondary benefit, of course, moving to the 2 double door arrangement on the cars, because we no longer got any end car doors as well. So we're back in the room, so I think there was one over here.
Yeah, given the intricacies of the track geometry on the Pic, the UCATL has been a necessity to ensure that the train speeds and wear rates are optimised. Then long term.
Do you want to say that one, Rocky?
I'll give you a few examples if you want, but
Yeah. I mean, are we like are we talking about balance between headway and run times and?
Yeah, well, yeah, because the geometry you've got in some areas, if you're not going to change that, and I can't see you changing it in extreme, you're going to have to run the train at a specific speed to get through it anyway.
Well, look,
that's if you leave that to the driver, the chances are you're going to get excessive wear because the pick up to get between stations on the timetable.
Yeah, correct. So you've got two things at play, right? You've got the track geometry, which is capping, but you've also got. The fact is, through the centre of town, you've got some very, very, very short interstation runs where you're going to have to run headway PSRs anyway. Whether it's ATO or manual, you're never really going to be up to full speed on some of those links. So in order to get your headways, you're really going to have those slow, steady speeds through there. That's all factored in as part of the business case for the ATO. That's we're looking across the piece. So obviously we've got ATO on most of the other lines at this moment in time. It's Piccadilly, which are still non-ATO. So yeah, but all that would be factored into
the 88 replacement 73 as well. Given any onboard electronics, there was no provision to get them.
Yeah, exactly
that. They are the last of the mechanical trains. Yeah, which of course is a big challenge for us in the ops and maintenance readiness arena, because it's a massive shift in terms of how we operate and maintain the train.
But I mean, the other consideration, right? When you go to ATO, you tend to focus then the track wear into some very, very consistent spots. So it's that balance as well around how that works in terms of those track wear patterns.
That's not true enough.
Another one online. Should we do an online in the room? Rocky, stay there. Mentioned replacement of bullhead rail. Is this essential across all of Piccadilly Line and depots?
In terms of essential, I mean, whole life cost worth, it's definitely cost benefit positive. The reduction in axle numbers plus actually the net weight of the train hasn't gone up as much as you might think, because of the lightweight materials and the incentivization on. So even if you take a fully laden 73 versus fully laden 24 tube stock, the increase hasn't been as much as you might expect. So all of those factors will increase the wear rates for the bullhead rail, no doubt, no doubt. So it just makes economic sense to do it, and to ensure that we can replace as much of it as possible. Again, it will be dependent on geographic locations and the geometry of the track as to where it's more beneficial, least beneficial. But certainly, yeah, from a pure cost benefit and whole life Totex perspective, it's something that we definitely don't want to deprioritize or remove from scope.
There's some interesting feedback in the room on that one. I think we probably leave that alone. All I'll say from an overarching delivery of the program perspective is it remains one of the key issues that we are discussing around the end state solution. It's slightly disappointing that we seem to have this delta between what the program feel they need to be delivering and what's happened with the track renewals work bank in the bigger picture of the business. It isn't finished yet, I think is the appropriate position on flat bottom versus bullhead. And we have the same challenge with some of the existing track infrastructure in the depots and stabling arena as well around exactly that, not just the bullhead piece but the track condition piece as well, and whether or not we need to replace areas that have been removed from the work bank. So it is still on the top issues list, is what I would suggest in terms of what we actually end up replacing or not.
And it's definitely something that, this is a Piccadilly Line upgrade to £3 billion program, and as you've seen from Gareth's slides, there's lots of internal interface and complexity to manage. But this is case in point around one of the key interfaces is with a party which is within the TfL family, but is not directly core and centre of the Piccadilly Line upgrade. So there's an organisational interface that for anyone dealing on a major programme is a key consideration of how to set that up and how that's managed. But that's part and parcel. There's no best solution to that. Just got to identify where those risk points are, whether it's a technical interface, supply chain interface, or client or organisational interface. They're all things that need managing.
Back in the room.
Yeah, I was looking at the process charts we had early on in the presentation. I was quite surprised I couldn't see visibly. It might be buried away somewhere. System safety, identification right early on of the hazards you've got, hazard management process, the incorporation of the safety requirements into your requirements, so you can demonstrate at the end you build what you need to build for a safe railway. And you mentioned Crossrail. I was in the assessment body on Crossrail, and they struggled with that, partly because the regulations under which they were working were late or sort of came in during their project, but also because if they wanted to do this and they could do it at the end. It doesn't work. You do it at the beginning and keep it under review through the project. I can point now to things that this line are still struggling with. They didn't listen to the ASBO. They pushed back on us. No one's listened to you guys. Spent all their effort in pushing back and not actually listening to us. Now there's suffering consequences. So I thought, actually, you're out there and flashing lights. It's not obvious. Also, if you're out there flashing all the time, I thought you guys might actually benefit from flashing those lights rather than saying it's obvious, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's absolutely there. I mean, there's hazard log on there and stuff, but we have. I've tried to condense tonight. There's a lot more in the system, so we're trying to just. I didn't want to. I could give you more, but we've had to sort of limit the time and things. So it's absolutely there. I think from a lesson plan point of view, so we've got a big engineering safety team in the background that feeds into all this work. They're a key part of the team. That's and also from a Crossrail point of view, we've had a lot of people have been on Crossrail within the team now. So we're making sure those lessons learned and processes and things that went well are embedded in there. So there is a lot of stuff in the background sitting behind this, but we've absolutely got a really strong engineering safety team. So yeah.
Do you have a slide of T minuses or the SRP plans?
Yeah, I can dig one on it.
Yeah, but I think we're tight on time. I think the point is it might not be in the presentation in flashing lights. It is definitely there in the background in terms of the program. There is a deep engineering system safety team on board. We've got a really strong plan with a local level assurance reviews, followed by a safety review panel, followed by DRACT, and we've got already in place the agreements as to which levels we take to each of those approval bodies. So it is in now. It maybe just didn't come out in the presentation in flashing lights, and we're all, most of us actually are long-term London Underground project people. Have been either part and parcel of Victoria Line upgrades or subsurface upgrades. We've also got people coming back in from Crossrail, bringing the lessons learned from there. There is a heavy system safety approach across the board. Absolutely, we are using system safety as part of our derived requirements.
We're definitely looking at 2 dimensions. So we've got a technical assurance plan, which is looking forward at all the different levels and risk and what the right review and approvals panels need to be. So we've kind of got 4 different levels depending on the nature of the safety risk. Ultimate one culminating in whenever we're potentially impacting the day-to-day operation, and then we have lower level risk parameters, which are much more determined at a local level. But we've also got the temporal view of the world. So it's the progressive assurance piece. We have certain configurations mapped forward, where we will have safety cases associated with each one, but we also have a T- process to make sure we've got the visibility of those as they come, rather than one fine day it all arrives in a bow. So we are looking at it in both those dimensions, but happy to have a further conversation about pros and cons and lessons learned from Elizabeth.
Thank you. You did internet. We talked about the training. That's one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, one more online.
Yeah, just one more question.
Is this the last one then, is it? So the last one online is, if funding was given to TfL for new trains for Bakerloo Central and Waterloo in the City, will they have the same design as the new trains for the Piccadilly Line? Will the only difference be the colour of the grab poles and the seating moquette? Well, so I'm a delivery lead, and in my opinion, the only difference will be nothing, and they have the same colour grab poles and the same colour moquette because it's cheaper. No. So the principle is, fundamentally, as far as we can, we will retain the design of this train through the deep tube upgrade. So the whole principle of the contract, we have options with Siemens to deliver the ongoing fleet for the other deep tube lines, and we, as a customer and client, want to change those designs as little as possible, and Siemens as a supplier want to change those designs as little as possible. We want to keep this as consistent as we can. However, we know that there are nuances between the different lines on London Underground, so we know that we need to do some work, and we've already got a front end team now in the Bakerloo Line upgrade space that are beginning to look at the feasibility aspects of that. We've got the link with Siemens because it's all under the contract that we've got accountability for currently that allows us to have those conversations. So that the aim is to keep the trains as consistent as possible. We want the consistency in terms of how we train our people to operate and maintain these trains. We want the consistency in terms of spares, holdings, and all of those nice things that go with it. But we are not blind to the fact that we may find that there's a need to make some very specific changes to the designs just because of the interface with the existing lines that they'll be delivered onto. So the aim is as much as possible.
Thank you very much. Really interesting presentation. I think it's to demonstrate the complexity and the importance of kind of integrating all the different requirements and all the different disciplines into kind of the delivery, and also how complex it is to deliver for you. Thank you for your time and all the answers. It's the last section meeting of the year. We need to vacate the building, but I think some people will join us on the red line for thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
For helping us with the setup and
No
people.
problem. Yeah.